Welcome to this week's episode of Trista's Plate Story Podcast. I'm Trista Polo from iwokeupawesome.com, and I am your host. Each week we learn the story behind that vanity plate. You know, the one you saw driving down the road? What did it say? What did it mean? Why did they choose it? This week we meet Eddy Thompson, Utah MLK Human Rights Commission member. The Utah MLK Human Rights Commission is running a contest to choose the official state decal for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. license plate in Utah. It will have the contest winner's artwork and the accompanying slogan, Many Voices, One Utah. The selected artwork will promote diversity, equality, and human rights. Let's go meet Eddy and learn about the commission, the contest, and Eddy's own story. Welcome. I am super excited to have Eddy Thompson with us today. He is from Salt Lake, Utah, and this is a different and special episode, which it's my podcast, so I can do whatever I want. I was on the internet and I noticed that there was a competition to create a new decal for a Martin Luther King Jr. plate. And Eddy is part of the commission that's running that contest in Utah. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. And normally where we start off is with the story behind a vanity plate. I checked in, Eddy doesn't have a vanity plate, but it's okay because we're going to talk about the commission and the contest. So tell us first, what is the commission and how was it started? Give us a little bit of background and history.
Sure. So the commission was built by Governor Herbert here in Utah. He's been governor for some years now, and he decided he wanted a Martin Luther King Human Rights Commission and a multicultural commission. So those commissions are both voluntary based, and they report up to him.
Awesome. And how old is the commission?
Ooh, I want to say it might be 15, 20 years old. I don't know the exact date and time, but we've had many members come through, and what we do is we have a tenure. So I believe it's every 2-year tenure, and then we rotate members.
How does it work to be on the commission?
Yes, ma'am, by appointment. And so that it has to go back to the governor, and then he appoints, he reviews the resumes and appoints those commissioners. And what's great about it is it ties the community together. We have a wide range of race and diversity within our commission. And so we try to cover as much as we can to cover the whole state of Utah.
How did you end up as part of the commission?
So my mom was a part of the multicultural commission, and about 4 years ago, my mom and I spoke at an event at one of the youth summits that this commission put together. And I guess they liked me enough to say, hey, we got to get this guy on here. So my mom was heavy into diversity. She's a diversity coordinator for the state of Utah. So she would go around to different schools, talking to different schools and promoting diversity, as well as handling different issues that came up between different races and whatnot.
Wow, that's great, because this is really needed in Utah, as I understand it. What do you see as the challenges that you have to overcome to really get the word of diversity out there?
So, and if I may take a step back, I want to take you back in my high school days. I used to coach basketball for a small school, and we would have to go around the state into small towns and small rural places. And it was interesting to see how people responded to us. We had a primarily Black, African-American team. We had some Hispanic folks. We had some Caucasian folks on the team. Our head coach was 6'9", and he was African-American, and he just obviously stood out. And so it was interesting at least for my tenure of about 8 years, to see some of the challenges that came up just by being essentially, just by traveling. And we had all types of different altercations and situations that were unfathomable for the year 2000 in the 2000s. So one of the challenges that we fight today is just ignorance, people not understanding different cultures, people being intolerant of different cultures. And I'm excited. One of the other initiatives that we just worked with our Governor Herbert on, he just passed this yesterday, but it's an anti-racism pact. And this anti-racism pact has 5 different topics to identify racism invest in communities that, that have to deal with racism, being an advocate. And it just goes through this process of things that you can to consider as we are dealing with racism on a day-to-day basis. And it comes in different shapes and forms, as we've seen, as I've witnessed and experienced. And so I'm just proud of Governor Herbert for taking a step to try to do something to erase racism.
Would you say,
especially with the situation of George Floyd this last summer, he said, we got to do something. This is his final year. This is his final year as the governor. He's stepping down after this year. He said, look, I'm tired of I'm tired of seeing these issues arise. What can we do to make a statement? What can we do to affect change? And the first thing that he did was he sat down and he met with us. We had probably 20 to 30 people in the room, different community activists and community voices. And he actually pushed he was only supposed to meet with us for about an hour and a half. And then he was supposed to actually meet with Vice President Pence. And he ended up pushing that off. And so he can continue to listen to us. So just like in the Pact, the first action is to acknowledge and to listen. And that's exactly what he did. And, just trying to build something to acknowledge it. And I'm sure he's getting pushback, but I think what he's doing is the right thing. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters, is trying to do the right thing.
Now, you're part of the Martin Luther King Jr. Human Rights Commission specifically, right? I'd love to hear what your first memory is of Dr. King.
So as I mentioned, my mother was a diversity coordinator. And so what she would do every summer during, when I was a little kid, was she would have me do book reports. And, while other kids are playing and having fun, I'm stuck inside reading book reports and learning about my history. But what it did was it gave me a sense of who I am and how far my ancestors came. And so, Dr. King was one of the first books that I read. And she had a whole series of these books, around 100 pages or so, giving you the high level, this is what happened, this is their life, and this is what they fought for, this is what, that sort of thing. And so, for me, Dr. King, he was a visionary. When you have a vision, you can second guess that. You don't even know sometimes how that vision is going to come together. But he just kept working at it. He was a public enemy of America. The FBI was trying to keep tabs on him and things of that nature. But what he embodied was bringing people together. And so when I got the opportunity to jump on this commission, I jumped all over it because I saw what their vision was. Their vision is, 6 principles of nonviolence, which are from Dr. Martin Luther King. Their vision is to keep his holiday going, to, try to create celebrations, but also in a lot of ways, most importantly, we want to encourage critical conversations on race. We want to give racial conversations a space, the correct space, and even that's difficult. You got to get the right people in the room. You want to make sure that it's respected and that people are able to feel like they're listened to. Sometimes we don't even have the solutions, but as long as they're able to say what they want to say, that's just important right there. And so, it's been a fun ride. I've been on this commission now for 4 years, and it's been a fun ride dealing with some of the challenges that we've had, but also creating the space to have conversations on police reform, on policing, on social advocacy. We've had some challenges with racism and in different ways with our history. We had a thing called the Negroville Canyon that we tried to get that name changed, help try to get that name changed here in Utah. And so all these different things that come up, we try to assist as much as we can. And I think we've done a pretty solid job considering that we're volunteering, our time. And so we just do the best that we can to promote that.
And it's great work that you're doing. I would love for you to share the 6 principles of nonviolence.
Okay, so the 6 principles of nonviolence. 1, nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people. Number 2, nonviolence seeks to win friendship and understanding. Number 3, nonviolence seeks to defeat injustice, not people. Number 4, Nonviolence holds that not voluntary suffering can educate and transform. And then number 5, nonviolence chooses love instead of hate. And then number 6, nonviolence believes that the universe is on the side of justice.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing those. Do you have one that's your favorite that you specifically live by more than the others?
I would say number 2, nonviolence seeks to win friendship and understanding. And I think, in some of the challenges and things that we've dealt with as a commission, that's been one of the things that stuck out is, as people see what we're doing, as we unite together, because this is not just a black and white thing. There's Native Americans. There's so many other groups that are disenfranchised, that are feeling left out. And as you talk to people, you see that a lot of the challenges are similar. And so it's been exciting to work with different people and to find common solutions that can apply across the board.
Awesome. That's really great. Now let's talk about the contest. You're getting a decal that will be adopted that people can choose as their license plate. Tell us a little bit about that and the journey behind it.
So about 10 years, at least 10 years ago, our commission, they decided we want to do this license plate. We want to promote what Dr. King's vision was about around this state specifically, and, to promote goodwill, to show that we are on the cutting edge of, doing social justice, being more inclusive and diverse in this state. And so, we had several members that tried to bring this to fruition for at least 10 years. The challenges that we had were we needed 500 signatures up front, and we needed their funds going to the license plate up front. So as you can imagine, that's a huge challenge. So, we worked for years, and even when I came on board, we kind of worked to get signatures, but it was always kind of we were always a couple steps behind, or sometimes the goals changed or the rules changed. This past year, Representative Sandra Hollins, she took it upon herself to get this into the state legislation and get it passed in a way that we didn't need the required signatures. We just needed the funds up front. Once she did that, that allowed us to just specifically solely work on the funds and ensure that, everything went through the legislation appropriately. She allowed us to come up with her, speak to the actual license plate and what it would do. My understanding is that in the past, it probably wouldn't have gone through that way, but because she stood forward, her and Representative Houck, our commission was able to get this approved. And so now in November, we were able to open up an art contest. Now this art competition, we're so excited about it. It's going to be for 7th through 12th graders. We wanted to promote and encourage our young people to take part in this process. And so, like I said, from November 5th through December 31st, anyone in 7th through 12th grade can submit the art logo for all of Utah for this license plate.
Residents?
Yes, ma'am. For Utah
Okay,
residents.
got it. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Again, 7th through 12th grade. And I'm excited. We want them to shape what this is and what diversity looks like. In this case, we couldn't use the likeness of Dr. Martin Luther King. So now you have to become more creative in how you create what this looks like. So we're very excited to see what our young people come up with. The 8 finalists, we're going to whittle it down to 8 finalists, and then we'll have a finalist out of that group. We're working with the Utah Jazz right now. We meet with them tomorrow. We're working with them. We're excited to see how we're going to unveil the license plate logo and recognize that winner.
Wow, that's really great. That's really great. And I love that you chose children so that they could express and have this be part of their conversation. Now, COVID has created some challenges for you, right, with this contest?
Yes, it has. In the past, usually what would happen is you send it to the school districts, and they'll post it at their schools, and they'll teachers will tell the kids, hey, you need to try this. And we even talked to, as we were going into this process, we talked to a representative that created a flag for the state of Utah, and they essentially went through the same process and helped us with setting up our process. So they were telling us they received something like several thousand submissions. In our case, we're less than that, and we had to extend our deadline because the message wasn't quite getting out, or there's so much on people's plates right now that they just don't have the time. And so we ended up extending our deadline.
Now you have children, and at least one of them is an entrant into this contest. Can you tell me a little about it's your daughter, right?
Yes, my oldest daughter. She is in 7th grade. And so I told her, don't let me look at it. Just fine. I don't want to see it. Matter of fact, we're not even looking. When we pull up the grading criteria and things of that nature, we're not even going to look at names. It's just going to be, let the graphics stand on its merit.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
I think the graphic's going to tell us, the graphic, in our opinion, will tell us exactly what we think we're looking for.
That's awesome.
It's kind of like I had mentioned earlier, Dr. King has this dream, this vision, but you don't fully know how it connects. And once we see the graphic, I think I have a feeling that it's gonna shape what it should be.
So I'd love to hear some details about, if you're a Utah resident, you have children in the right age group, how do they go about putting an entry in, making a submission? What's the process?
So the process is, we want it in digital format. The size is going to be 3.875 inches by 3.25 inches. It can only have a maximum of 6 colors. The original design must be based on human rights, and due to the copyright laws, any images or likeness of Dr. King is not allowed. And then we have a website that you can submit the art to. And again, that is due by December 31st. That's when the window closes. And then from there, we'll go into the grading process. Our goal is to acknowledge the winner around Dr. Martin Luther King Day.
Perfect. Which is in January, right?
Yes, ma'am. I believe it's January 19th.
So with your extended deadline, you've given yourselves a little tighter turn time.
Exactly. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. And Utah Jazz is part of this in some way. They're a sponsor. They're helping you promote it. What's their
So
role?
they're both. They sponsored. What we did was we asked several community partners to sponsor with us. So our sponsors are Comcast, Goldman Sachs, STEM Action Center, and the Utah Jazz. We're really excited, thankful for the Utah Jazz for their partnership over the years.
That's great. Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Are there any other ways you'd like to share that this topic and this advocacy has affected you personally?
Personally, it's been great to meet different people, start working with them. As we talked about in Utah, not the greatest place for diversity in the world, but at the same time, it's growing. We have a lot of people moving in, and so people are trying to figure out things to do. We have an African and a Black Chamber of Commerce headed by James Jackson, and he's doing a wonderful job of bringing people together and pulling in contact points, so that if I need to come in to Utah, I need to get my hair cut done, I need to go to a salon. He's pulling those activities together so that folks can have a one-stop place to find these activities and these restaurants and things of that nature. So that's probably one of the high levels for me, just working with people, identifying issues that maybe I wasn't aware of, and trying to find solutions and ways that we can pull community to get together and to support. Our governor has been phenomenal in his support of interests that he might not be so much aware of, but he's definitely focused and listening on trying to find solutions. Our police in Utah, they're trying to come together to be more preventative than reactionary, and that's a challenge within itself. We've met with our police officers multiple times. We have different what we call King conversations with them in order to bring the community together with these leaders and have that voice and have that response and listen to time, so we can bring these challenges that sometimes just get pushed aside to the forefront and try to do something about it. It doesn't always work, but at least we're trying to acknowledge those things and trying to bridge the gap. but it's just been a phenomenal experience working with each individual member that's been on this commission and with other commissions, because there's a wealth of knowledge there. There's a wealth of experience there. And, just you being able to use your voice to try to affect change. And these folks are so supportive, and they're willing to take time out of their very, very busy schedules in order to help and assist and to work on these initiatives.
Having all areas of the community work together is crucial. You can't do it all by yourselves. It's a huge undertaking. It's amazing to me how long it's taking. You said that your mom made you read books when you were a kid. Mine did the same thing. I read Animal Farm like way before I should have. But one of my earliest collection was the Abraham Lincoln collection. It was like 4 books, and his face was on the, like, drawn over the 4 bookends. And I read that series over and over and over again. And it's just amazing to me how we're not further along this many years later.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we have to do is acknowledge the progress, right? And so, things are much different for me than they were for my parents. My dad was raised in Mississippi. He picked cotton. They lived on a farm, and he had to pick, even when he was 5 years old, they had to pick cotton. So he had a certain poundage that he had to pick. The story, my grandma, she had a 3rd grade education. My grandpa had pretty much no education, and my grandpa he cut his arm off in a cotton gin. And so, he was very limited on what he could do to begin with. But at the same time, my grandma pretty much forced her family to get out of Mississippi because she understood the lack of opportunities. She had, I want to say it was 9 kids, and she knew that they weren't going to get ahead in life dealing with the situations that they were dealing with. So she took it upon herself to move her family out to California just to get them through high school. Like, if you can just get through high school, that's great. And fortunately, several of them ended up going on to college. My dad ended up going to Idaho State and playing basketball there, where he met my mom. But just that story alone, for me, shows me how far we've come. But
you're absolutely right.
But at the same time, there's still a lot of work. I've worked with a school just down the street from me in Salt Lake, an underprivileged school. And, just with COVID coming up, the lady at the school was telling us, look, we don't have iPads for our kids. Our computers are out of date. And, when you look up to East Salt Lake, which is more affluent and things of that nature, they're getting iPads, to their schools and whatnot. And I can sympathize with that, because my kids are able to be on the east side of in Salt Lake and go to school there. And they're given iPads and all the resources needed. But this school right down the street from me is saying we have no resources. So we're able to raise some money for them to get some resources and at least get them started to get their kids, so their kids are not falling too far behind, although they probably already are slightly behind, I'm sure, due to COVID. So it's the challenges are still there. The challenges in education, the challenges in medical, the challenges in imprisonment, they're all still there. And it's just slightly different in some cases. So again, some things better than they used to be, but we still have a ways to go. And that's what we're fighting for. Just not even better than, it's just getting to equal. We're not even talking about, front of the bus. It's just equal opportunity. So, I mean, that's just one of the things, many of the things that we've talked with our governor about addressing is, these are kind of the 4 or 5 different topics that we need help with. We need to work on.
And you're in the right direction. You're in the conversation. You're bringing it to light. And that's when change happens.
Exactly. Change doesn't happen by sitting back and watching. Change happens by standing up and speaking for and fighting for, and in some cases protesting for. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to encourage the community to come together. And many of our partners, as we mentioned before, they've stepped up to the challenge. And we're hoping that with Governor Herbert's compact, anti-race compact, that will also promote and help other companies and people, individuals, step up to the challenge of simply trying to make things better for people. That's all we're trying to do, make things better for people. We're just trying to make it equal and just same opportunities as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So I want to thank you so much for being on. I enjoyed hearing about what you're doing to raise awareness and make change. And I'd love to just turn the tables. This is what I always do, and ask if you have one question you'd like to ask me. So do you have a question for me before we wrap up?
Thank you again. Thank you for having me. My question is, what has been your favorite license plate?
There's a lot. I have 49 license plates already in my series, which is pretty awesome. So I'm not sure what my favorite plate is, but I will tell you that my favorite thing is learning about what's behind the eyes of the plate. It's just like with people. You know, you can't tell anything about a person by the color of their skin, the clothes they wear. You got to get to know them. You got to get into the depths of them and see what they're about, what makes them tick, and their history and their experiences. I have a lot more understanding of you now, just hearing a little tiny bit of your lineage. And so I think that's what's so special to me, more than the plates themselves, but the people behind them and hearing their stories, the specialness that each person brings, because everyone is different and everyone is unique and has their own journey. And that has value. Yes. Being able to share the stories of the people driving around on the road. So that's the way I'm going to answer your question.
I like the answer because, in a way, that's exactly what we're doing. Is we're trying to, as we promote diversity, everybody's got a different story. And, your people's books, we're talking about kids and youth, people's books aren't yet written. And so if we can make a small change in the way they perceive things, if we can change their perspectives, and especially during this year of COVID where people were shut in, it's so tough. We're dealing with our kids. They want to be out. They want to be doing different things and meeting with their friends. But, it's so tough. But giving youth an opportunity to be able to express themselves, to have a different perspective on things, to, maybe shape the way their life goes, that's so critical. And like I said, we're just so excited to be doing some of these activities, and want to just thank you so much for what you're doing.
My little tiny part in the puzzle.
All it takes. If everybody does their tiny part, that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to thank you so much for being on, Eddy. It's been so nice to hear about what you guys are up to. I really hope and wish you a lot of success. And even though COVID has lessened your ability to get the word out in the traditional ways, I hope you have tons and tons of entries. And that really means that this is being talked about and the voices are being heard and everybody's playing their part and contributing.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. Thanks so much for being on. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Trista's Plate Story Podcast. Please subscribe to Trista's Plate Story Podcast to get the story behind all those vanity plates driving with you on the road. And if you would like to nominate the owner of a license plate, including you, or visit any of our partners and sponsors, come and see us at platestory.com. That's PL8 story.com, and give us the details. If you enjoyed this episode, please drop a review and give us a share. I'm Trista Polo, wishing you well on the road to your next adventure.